We have made it to question number 31, which is the first question on our second review sheet for the quadratic equations test. Here is our practicing of the three methods of solving a quadratic equation in standard form. Solve the equation x squared minus 4x equals 21 using all three methods below. Method number one is factoring. Let's go through these steps. First step for factoring, if there's a y value, change it to 0. There's no y value, so we can ignore the first step. Step number two, make sure all the terms are on one side of the equal sign. We've got to do that. X squared minus 4x is going to be minus 21 equals 0 because we're moving the 21 to the other side. Alright, and now let's take a look at our next step, which is to find the GCF. Well, let's find out. Are they in the proper order and it's equal to 0? Yeah, now we can find the GCF. Well, the A value is 1, and that means there's no GCF to pull out, and A is positive. This is a step we can skip. Next step, identify A, B, and C. Hoping by repetition you guys are just getting these steps down. If you're watching the videos, then you're hearing the steps explained. Alright, let's find our combination. A times C is negative 21. B is negative 4. Start with 1. 1 times 21. And we're not going to get the negative 4 there. 2 does not go into 21. 3 goes into 21 7 times. Looks good because the difference between 3 and 7 is 4. And we're going to subtract 7 from 3. 3 minus 7 is negative 4. And 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. In class, remember, we've got an A value equal to 1. That means we get to use our shortcut. So our factored form is x plus 3 times x minus 7 equals 0. If we're solving now, we've got intercept form now. If we're solving, we got to figure out what changes x plus 3 to 0. Or what changes x minus 7 to 0. X is going to be negative 3 here. X is going to be positive 7 here. So our solutions, when we factor it, is going to be x can be negative 3 or positive 7. Now, we're going to do the same procedure. We're going to do the two different procedures now on the same equation. We better get the same answer. If not, we got to go check and find our errors. Alright, completing the square. Completing the square, our rules are first, if there's a y value, get rid of it and change it to 0. Nope, no y value. Next step, make sure the c term is on one side by itself. Well, we've already done that, so that works out pretty good. So we can just rewrite our equation. We've got a term and b term. Whoops. A term and b term on one side. Our c term is by itself. I'm going to move that over a little bit to make room for my calculations. Alright. Next step is we're going to make a space. Oh, sorry. The next step is actually make sure that A equals 1. And it does, so we can move on. Got to have A equal to 1 before we can complete the square. So now we can go ahead and make our space. So x squared minus 4x plus some number, which will complete our square. And we're going to find that by taking our b value, which is negative 4. And I'm going to write it down here. If b is negative 4, then we need to find b over 2 squared, which is negative 4 over 2 squared, which is going to be 4. And then we want to find b over 2 at the same time. We're going to use that when we factor. b over 2 is negative 4 over 2, which is negative 2. Alright, so just in case we have a little misunderstanding here, this 4, the b over 2 squared, that's what goes in our blank space. That's what completes the square. And now, this number, the negative 2, or b over 2, that's what's going to allow us to factor the left side. So our left side now is factored to x minus 2 squared. This negative 2 goes right here. Because if we factored this side now, it's a perfect square. If we go through all the factoring steps, we'll end up with x minus 2 times x minus 2. That's what completing the square does for us, is it makes it a squared binomial. All right, and then we've got 21 plus 4 is 25. Let's move this back a little bit over here. Now you've got this now in vertex form, pretty much in vertex form. So now we're going to go ahead and square root both sides, because square root will cancel the square, and we end up with x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 25. Let's move the 2 over. When we get rid of the 2 on the left side, we're going to add 2. That's going to end up being positive 2 on the right side. And now we've got two possible solutions. Either our solution is 2 plus the square root of 25 or 2 minus the square root of 25. 2 plus 20 square root of 25 is going to be 7. And 2 minus the square root of 25, let's put that on our calculator just to practice it. 2 minus the square root of 25. Close my parentheses. If my calculator adds a parenthesis, press equal, and you've got negative 3. Now the good news is that matches our solution for factoring, which, yay, we know we've been successful because we have the same solution. All right, last step, or last solution method, which is quadratic formula. Now I'm going to look at my equation. Let's just go through this. Usually, class, I don't mind if you just write the equation on each column before you start, but let's look at our equation. For quadratic formula, you have to get all the terms to one side. First of all, is there a y value here? Nope. So we don't have to change y to 0. Move the c term to the other side. Now I'm gonna actually show that. I should have showed that for factoring as well. So here's our original equation. We've got to move the c term to the other side. Quadratic formula requires that everything is on the same side of the equal sign, and our equation equals 0. All right, no GCF necessary, no a equals 1 necessary, just identify a, b, and c. Our next step is to find the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, which is negative 4 squared minus 4 times a times c. Let's put that in our calculator, if I can move this over so we can see it. We've got parenthesis negative 4 parenthesis squared minus 4. The 1 is in parentheses, that's our a value. The negative 21 is in parentheses, that's our c value. And we've got 100. So our discriminant here is 100. Next step, let's write out our solutions. Now we're going to write the rest of the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus square root of the discriminant, which is 100, over 2 times a. Let's take a look. B is negative 4. That means it's going to turn to positive 4 in our quadratic formula, plus or minus 100. And a is 1, so 2 times a is just 2. So now we've got two possible solutions. Either our solution is going to be 4 plus the square root of 100 over 2, or 4 minus the square root of 100 over 2. Now remember what I've taught you. If you're going to put the whole thing in your calculator, don't forget to put the numerator in parentheses. Let's do one of these. So I'm going to put parenthesis 4 plus the square root of 100. Now since my calculator adds a parenthesis, I have to close my square root and then close my numerator and then divide it by 2. Our first answer is 7. And if you put this in your calculator, you will get negative 3. And works out good, class. Got the same solutions as our other two methods, which means we've been successful. -3 and 7. There's our first example, number 31. We'll do number 32 on a separate video.